Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, y'all, and brother Ali. Welcome to the Travelers Podcast. I'm sitting here in my office in Istanbul, about to head to the airport to start my first U.S. tour in a long time. For 20-something years, I toured more than I was home. There were years where I toured for 10 months out of the year. There's years where I did well over 150 shows per year. And I'm talking about like major chunks of my life. From the time that we started in 2002 until the pandemic in 2020, I mean, I was on tour way more than I was home. And then we moved to Istanbul, and then the world changed, and then I changed my situation. And particularly this year, because I came into this year after October the 7th and with things escalating in Palestine, we made an album called Love and Service. That's myself and a Jewish anti-Zionist producer, animator, illustrator named Unjust. We made this album called Love and Service together. And one of the songs is deeply critical of colonialism and genocide and apartheid in general, but in the Middle East specifically, in occupied Palestine. Also, last year this time, the Grouch from Living Legends was kind enough to invite me on tour. And I've always been outspoken about Palestine and a number of other issues, whether it's popular or not, whether there are consequences or not. I've faced a lot of consequences. But during that tour in November of last year, I was on stage doing a song called Uncle Sam Goddamn that's about imperialism, colonialism, apartheid, genocide, etc. And so we broke the song down in the middle of the song. And I said, you know what it is. If you listen to Ali, free Palestine from the river to the sea, the crowd would go crazy. But a lot of the promoters weren't happy. And a lot of the press people weren't happy. And even the distributor, the people that were supposed to distribute that album, they backed out on us. And it's been a very, very interesting year. And by interesting, I mean that I have not been paid for anything all year. And so this is actually my first time going on tour. Shout out to my amazing booking agent who doesn't necessarily oppose or share my exact same beliefs. She is a Jewish woman. She's a really amazing person. But she said, Ali, you have the right to say what you're saying. And I trust where you're coming from. And I trust that you're coming from a place of love. And you've always been outspoken. And she said, you know, some of these things might make me even a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to fight for you. And she was able to book us a tour. But not only that, I'm going on tour with Ant, who produced so much of my music. Ant is half of Atmosphere. Incredible producer, even better human being and friend. And we made an album together called Satisfied Soul. By the time you hear this, I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but by the time you hear this, we will very likely have announced that we're actually partnering with a record label called Mellow Music on the Satisfied Soul album. Mellow Music has an incredible track record of being supportive of underground independent artists. So Odyssey did a lot of his work there. Apollo Brown did a lot of his work there. Quelle Chris did a lot of his work there. Homeboy Sandman, people that I really admire, revere, and love. My man JB has a new album coming out on that label. We decided to partner with him, even though we completed this Satisfied Soul album together. It's me and Ant make 17 songs together. And I love it so much. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. And working with Ant again with like that big soulful, lush sound, when the last few things I've done have been kind of more lo-fi or traditional hip hop sounding. I'm so happy to present this record. And we did it completely. And we realized like, man, we need help getting the word out. We need help distributing. And so we reached out to Mellow Music and they gave us exactly what we asked for. They've been so great with us. And so the full album doesn't come out until early next year, but Mellow Music has agreed to share 5 of the 17 songs. Starting today, if I'm not mistaken, I'm recording this a few days before it comes out, but go to streaming services, just look up Brother Ali. And I believe by the time you hear and see this, that those songs will be up there. And also me and Ant are on the Satisfied Soul tour. Tickets and VIP are available. Now, if you go to brotherali.com, get the tickets in advance. If you're thinking about coming, I get a report every week that shows the ticket count. And when the ticket count is moving slow, it makes me feel like, man, people don't want to come. and then the day before the show, we'll sell like a couple hundred more tickets. And then like people will like walk up to the show, and I walk on stage and I'm thinking it's only about to be 150 people here. And we come out stage, there's 400 or there's 600 or there's 1,000 or whatever. You can do whatever you want. Like whatever way you show up at a show, I'm grateful and happy. But if you're going to come to the show, you will help to make us feel a little more assured that you want us to come if you buy the tickets in advance. So go to brotherali.com, check that out. I just feel very, very grateful. This conversation that we're about to share with you is extremely dope. Adisa, the bishop, Adisa Banjoko, is somebody that if you're in the hip hop community, particularly in the conscious hip hop community, the health conscious hip hop community, and especially in California and the Bay, but really around the world, Adisa is somebody who's a legend. Adisa is an extremely important figure in our community. If you don't know him, you're about to experience one of the most unique, dynamic human beings that I've ever met. And I know a lot of amazing people. I know a lot of quirky people. I know a lot of unique people. I know a lot of one-of-ones. But Adisa is right there near the top of the list. Adisa Banjoko is from the Bay Area. He came up with very early hip hop. He grew up between the suburbs and the hood. He's a black brother that was, I'll let him get into his story, but, and he was exposed to a lot of different types of music, got really into hip hop and made incredible hip hop music. We'll put a link so that you can check out the music that he made during his time as an MC. You can also see and you'll hear about how he was very, very early to studying and being a proponent of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he studied with the Gracie family, which are the founders and the creators of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So his lineage is extremely powerful. And he was talking about this stuff way before there was a Joe Rogan or anybody else talking about it. So it's dope. And he's a black belt and he's an instructor. And he goes around the country and around the world teaching people. And that's really incredible. So he'll talk about that. On top of that, Adisa is a major proponent of chess, the game of chess. And he started the Hip Hop Chess Federation, where he works with the RZA and the GZA from Wu-Tang Clan. And they do amazing chess stuff all over the world with the idea that chess is a universal human language that allows for people to play on an equal playing field. And especially for people that are marginalized, where there's like a centuries old campaign to make them think about themselves, to make us think about ourselves, that I'm not smart and that these other people are smarter than me. They're wiser. They're more intelligent than me. With the game of chess, you have the opportunity to really sit down and match wits with people. And so Adisa teaches chess all over the world, but especially in marginalized communities. Super, super dope. On top of that, Adisa is an amazing journalist. He's the first person to ever interview Eazy-E for his high school newspaper. I'm going to let him tell you the story, but it's just really amazing. Also, Adisa is a very, very pro-black lover of like European philosophy. You know what I'm saying? Specifically, like a particular strain of philosophy that I'm going to let him talk to you about, the Stoic philosophies. Amazing. If you don't know him, if you know him, then you already know. But if you don't, then you're about to witness one of the most amazing, loving, smart, quirky, beautiful, hilarious, and truly sincere human beings. And I'm so happy to be able to share this, and so much love to my man Adisa. We're brought to you as always by the Zakat Foundation, Z-A-K-A-T. That's the part of Islam that deals with charity, with giving back, with doing the thing that comes naturally to all human beings. For anybody that has enough money to eat today, and maybe even having a little extra after you and your family have eaten today, there's a whole lot of people in the world that are not in that situation. And Zakat Foundation is trying to be everywhere where human beings are in need and just helping to facilitate what they need in a way that's really deeply dignified. So I'm grateful to be connected with the Zakat Foundation. Go to Zakat US on social media. or go to zakat.org, zakat.org. Find something that they're doing and just put something on it. If you give $5, a person will eat today that wouldn't have otherwise. And it's from an organization that's not just stealing your money. They don't act like a big I'm sorry, not a corporation, a global charity organization that does not act like a big corporation. If you give $50 a month, you're going to help an orphan go to school and eat, and they've taken specific precautions to make sure that people don't just pick orphans based on their look. Oh, she's cute and he's so-and-so. They're like, listen, we're going to help the people most in need. This isn't Tinder. You're not swiping right and left. You know what I'm saying? It's a really dope organization. We're grateful to be associated with them. So go to brotherali.com, get your tickets, look out for our new music, check out the Zakat Foundation, and enjoy this conversation with Adisa Banjoko, aka the Bishop. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I think we just have to name at the outset that there is no way to cover everything in one conversation with someone as dynamic as you, that's lived the life that you've lived. I mean, you're truly one of the most unique and uniquely accomplished people that any of us have ever met. So I just think we have to name at the outset that we're going to have to do a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. Like, honestly, you and I could have a podcast together.
We do every time we talk on the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, the CIA has massive content. Let's start with that. The CIA and the FBI, they know how we get down. And, just because they've been listening, and I don't blame them, but all they do is, I was thinking, whoever watches me in the government, they must have the coolest job. Because I don't do nothing. They'd be like, oh, I just learned how to stop getting the flu in my house with these herbs.
And an arm bar. I also learned what to do about...
But no terrorism to cite, sir. Send.
Yeah. None of that. I also found out somehow Tupac really liked Twinkies. You know what I mean? They wouldn't believe it. It'd be like you're surveilling 17 different people. There's no way this is one human being.
This one guy. Yeah,
man.
It's hilarious.
It's like you're hidden in plain sight. You know what I mean? Because you don't look your age. You don't look like you're obviously very fit, but I don't think people understand how dangerous and deadly you are unless. But just, man, also the life lived. So the main challenge here is like, how do we even get into a conversation like this? And just some of the random things that I think I know about you.
Okay, let's go.
So if I am correct, your uncle threw Carlos Santana's first show.
Yeah. My uncle went to high school with Carlos Santana, and
you
his first show.
And you were the first person to ever interview Eazy-E.
Yeah, probably.
Right, so,
I've never seen anything easier.
So here's there's how we start to begin this conversation. So that's like somehow if you could weave Geronimo Pratt up in there.
Yeah, Geronimo Pratt gave me my middle name. I'll tell you that story. You know what I'm saying?
Let's start with G Pratt.
All right. So Geronimo Pratt, man, God bless him. He was a mentor of mine from prison while he was locked up for a crime he did not commit. Mm-hmm. The way it all came together is I used to be in a rap group called One Nation, which was not the One Nation that Tupac had. In fact, it was the existence of these two separate One Nations that we knew about each other, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Through Ray Love, who I met at a house party. But my point is I did a show at San Francisco State with One Nation. It was me, this brother AK Black, and FM20, if you know anything about like real deep hip hop history, a group called FM20. We all had this collective org called One Nation. We did a show there at SF State, and there was a woman named Kilu Nyasha comes up to me in a wheelchair. She was one of the first women in the Black Panther Party. She was like, look, we should talk. I like what you're saying on stage, whatever. She became my direct mentor. She used to live on the edge of Chinatown, I think on Pacific Avenue. And it would be like her, Bobby McCall. Bobby McCall is Money B's dad. He was a Panther, from Digital Underground, right? I took Dell to some of those early meetings. I took Dell, the Funky Homo Sapien. Money B would be there sometimes. We would just be in there learning from her. And she had unbelievable archives. I'm talking about audio interviews with Geronimo Pratt, audio interviews with Huey Newton, audio interviews and letters from Asada Shakur. I'm talking about she'll pull the letter out and be like, and this is what she said or whatever. So I got cool with Geronimo Pratt through that. And so he gave me my middle name. So my name is Adisa Banjoko, by the way. My nickname is the Bishop. Adisa Banjoko is not the name I was born with. I was born Jason Parker in San Francisco.
You're a Jason too? I was originally a Jason.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? The J's unite out here, boy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? My dad was into the Orgonauts, you know what I'm saying? So he named me Jason, you know what I'm saying? Greek mythology, always in some part of my world. So what happens is I decided I want to change my name. I was coming to Islam, but I did not want an Arab name. That was a really big deal to me. It was a really big deal that I not have an Arab name because I was a very hard left radical black nationalist. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know, So we was trying to figure it out. So Kilu, I got in a book from Marcus Bookstores, right, down in Fillmore. Went over to Fillmore, got a book of names, going through stuff, what could be ready. There was Adisa, which I say wrong. I think in Nigerian they say like Adisa, because Nigerians always get mad when I say my name, you know what I'm saying? But I was like, there's no Nigerians telling me nothing, dog. You know what I'm saying? Right. We over here. So, yeah, but
exactly. Yeah, it would have been cool for you to come tell us that in like the 1600s, the 1700s.
You could have.
That would have took the time to fill us in on that.
You know what I'm saying? So they always
shout to Killmonger.
When I be in the UK, they always go, you know, you do not say your name correctly. You know this. Do you know? That's not how you say it. I'm like, I'm from the Bay, man. You know what I'm saying? That I have an African name. that I have an African name by choice is a miracle in itself. So let's just give thanks. You know what I mean? Man. So Kilu gave me Adisa and Banjoko, and then Sebaku was a nickname that Geronimo Pratt gave me. So Sebek, this is a weird story. So Sebek is the god of information in Egyptian mythology. And he was originally aligned with Set, who would be akin to the devil. And so what his job was to go out and tell myth truths about Asar, right? The Egyptian god on the good side, okay? Mm-hmm. And so once Asar overcomes Set, he tells Sebek, now with your skill, go tell the truth the way you used to go tell lies. And so Geronimo challenged me. And he was like, now that I have taught you all these different truths, will you go tell the truth to the people? And so that became my middle name. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what I've been on ever since. You know what I'm saying? That's what I've been on. I still have letters he used to send me because he used to send me messages and things to tell Tupac. And he would send me, tell Tupac whatever I would see. The last time I saw Tupac alive, I told him to contact his uncle. That was the last thing I told him in Los Angeles.
Incredible. So, I mean, I think we know about Tupac as an artist, obviously. We know about Tupac as a speaker, because, I mean, we have, but, it's one thing to be a speaker. It's an activist in that way that stands up and rallies the crowd. It's a totally different thing to be an organizer. You know what I mean? To be a person that actually organizes and serves the movement by serving the people in the movement. Did you know Pac to be an organizer?
To say that I knew him to be an organizer is weird only because he was born in it, right? He was already in the mix. So when I show up, he's already, you know what I mean? So to say he was an organizer is probably saying too much, but to say that he always was for the people was real. I'll tell you, one of my most consistent memories with him is, so first of all, he was a jokester. So it's hard for people to understand that part. He was funny all the time. And this doesn't mean that the serious side of him didn't exist. Sure. I believe they existed in equal value at different times, depending on who you were and what the situation was. You understand? Okay. So he would call me and we would be roasting each other. I'm a roaster. I can clown people. I can make people cry. It's not something that, you know what I'm saying? But when you're 15 and you're hella small, you got to be on the wits. So me and Pac would be roasting, whatever. We'd be going head and head. And he'd be like, he'd break it off. He'd always break up like this. We'd be laughing. He'd be like, oh, hey, man, have you ever read Revolutionary Suicide? I'm like, what? Have you ever read Revolutionary Suicide? No. What is that? Oh, man, it's by Huey Newton. And it tells you, and he'll go, back to roasting. Oh, so look, did you read Philosophies and Opinion of Marcus Garvey or more Philosophies and Opinion? Because he said something in the second one. Like, that was a crazy pendulum to be on with Tupac. But that's one of my most vivid and consistent memories of him was between roasting and him telling me about books that I had not read. You know, I've often told people that nobody in hip hop was smarter than Tupac. Nobody read as much. So when we see all these artists that'll be like, I want to be the next Tupac. How many rappers say that? Or they claim to be the next Tupac. Yet none of them read. He read at a phenomenal rate long before he was an MC, through the point he was an MC, when he went to jail. And so that's why his music resonates on so many different ways with so many different people. But everybody who says they want to be Tupac or the next Tupac, they don't do any of the things that he did. And the main one was read. You know what I mean? He was so well read. You know, the only people that I know in hip hop that I believe are genuinely more intelligent than Tupac now is probably RZA, Jizza, and then you. But like, that's only because he died. If he was still alive, we couldn't compete and we wouldn't try to because we know not to.
So I want to get to, I'm really interested to hear about, you know, you were obviously very early in hip hop. I say that like, you don't, you know, if somebody were just meeting you, they wouldn't know your age, especially if they're not black. It's funny, like now that we live outside of America, people always think my wife is like 18 and people always think my 16-year-old daughter is 40. Like they switch, you know what I'm saying? Like they're constantly like, and I just realized like people who aren't black have no idea how old black people are. But even with, you know, I've spent a good amount of time amongst the blacks. But I would say that I would say that even to the trained eye, you know what I'm saying? You like I think people wouldn't realize, you know what I mean? The season of life.
Yeah, I'm about to be 55.
Okay, there we go.
I'm about to be 55.
There it is. There it is. But so you know, were involved in through your family and just through your early experiences. Also, another thing that I know about you is that you were born in the city in San Francisco and grew up kind of like going back and forth between the hood and the burbs.
Yeah. I'm strictly a suburban kid, for sure.
But your family is deeply rooted in culture and art and activism and pro-black theology and Pan-Africanism in the Bay, which is all just, I mean, there's no way for people to really understand all of the power that's in the Bay and all of the dynamics that are all going on at the same time in the Bay is just truly incredible. So, you know, even before we get to hip hop, like what is it specifically that you have picked up about the Bay and all of the spirituality, politics, culture, art, activism, you know, just the humanity experience that's in the Bay?
You know, it's crazy because the Bay Area is so unique, and you're right. Like if you didn't get a chance to kick it here a little bit, it's very hard to understand. It's so layered. There are so many different people. There are so many different mindsets. There are so many different kinds of education. There's so many different kinds of people that sought to come here, right? To teach so many different things. And that's why the Bay is just always on fire creatively, politically, socially, you know what I'm saying? Everything else. I think, you know, coming from the Bay, so basically I was born in San Francisco, right? And I was raised on the edge out like about 5 or 10 minutes outside of San Francisco in Pacifica and then in San Bruno.
So that's west?
That's south. That's a little south. Yeah, that's south by about 15, 20 minutes. And so my father's from the Mission District. He's originally from New Orleans, and my mother is from Monroe, Louisiana. But they met out here as adults, and my mother was from like Lakeview and Hunters Point area, and my father's from the Mission. The Mission District was such a huge education for me. That's where I first learned about Black and brown unity, not in a spoken, I'm wearing a t-shirt about it kind of a way, but just the way that Blacks and Latinos would engage and support each other. I remember like everybody now, you know, when you look at retro stuff, you know, they'll have low riders or whatever. And sometimes you'll see somebody with a low rider bike. The first time I saw a low rider bike, it was like 1977, 78. And I was just walking to the park and this kid walked by and he was bouncing on his bike. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? And he was like, oh, I have this tennis ball that I put under the seat. And then my brother put this thing in. So it's like a hinge. So he could like bounce like he was in a car like while he was on his bike. Right. Yes. And I was like, I was 8 years old and he might have been 9 or 10. He might have been 9 or 10. So the lowrider scene in the Mission, the car culture in San Francisco and San Jose, San Jose, California is where all the club culture was, especially after the earthquake in '89. Because there used to be a club called the Palladium in San Francisco, right off Broadway. And there was the Stone. That's where, like, I mean, I opened for Brand Nubian at the Stone. You know, you would do shows at the Palladium and you could almost be sure someone was getting shot because it was next to a strip club. So there was always this mayhem out front and this alpha male tension and hip hop, and dudes from all parts of the city would show up. Fillmore got problem with HB got problem with Lakeview, got problem with, you know what I'm saying? So it was crazy. So this is what I grew up in, right? This is what I grew up in. I was close enough to the city to go into the Mission District, in the Lakeview, whatever, and see what was up, but distant enough to not become a victim of it. Yeah. You know, and so it was weird. It was very weird. And it was also this thing where like black was beautiful in the house, but then you step on the sidewalk and someone calls you a nigger. Then there's like, you know, 5 different black families who galvanize. So what's up? And then there's some little skirmishes and whatnot. You know, when I was walking to school, the area was so white. There would be WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, usually tattooed on the sidewalk. And then it would say different stuff like disco sucks. That's how old I am. That disco sucked. I remember when disco sucked. You know what I mean? And so
which was like a deeply racialized comment. You know what I mean? Because they were talking about, you know what I mean? That was like,
they want you to know.
Right.
You know, that was like, very specific.
Rock. We're about rock, brother.
Exactly.
We're not about disco over here, bro.
Right?
Like, so take your dance moves and go back to Africa, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And meanwhile, at the same time, I'm kind of like, AC/DC is kind of dope. Right? Like I'm liking Ozzy Osbourne. I'm liking Led Zeppelin. And so when I was in the 7th grade, my nickname from some of the black kids, there was only like 5 or 6 black families where I grew up in San Bruno. And it was upper middle, but not super rich, but upper middle for sure. And so we went to Pacific Heights, and Pacific Heights had kids from another area of Pacifica and some kids from the city. So when I come through talking like how I talk, they're like, look at this nerd weirdo. And then I'd be like, hey, so you guys like Led Zeppelin? And they're like, Led Zeppelin? So my nickname was the Black Rocker. That's what they used to call me. They'd be like, hey, have you seen that kid with the glasses? Oh, you talking about the Black Rocker? I'm like, I don't have, right? In my house, it's Coltrane, it's Funkadelic, it's Prince, it's Michael Jackson. But just because I knew who AC/DC was, because you know what I'm saying? The Black Rocker. And that was the year that I learned about hip hop through my cousin. He was in the 7th grade, and he still looks like Apollo Creed, but at 13 he was trying to be Apollo Creed. So he was lifting weights, and there was a mixtape, and it was the first time I had heard hip hop, and I was like, "What is this?" And he was like, "Oh, this is a mixtape. My friend Jesse Carr made it. I've never met Jesse Carr. This is how much somebody you never meet can impact your life." Yeah. I said, I need a copy of that. Like, I knew everything that was on that tape. And this is Cold Crush Brothers. This is like way back hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I get the dub, I listen to it, and I decided right then, I don't even know what all of this is, but I'm doing it forever. I don't know what this is, but I'm doing it forever, right? Yeah. So, and I don't want to act like I didn't know that Rapper's Delight existed and stuff like that. But I don't think that it resonated with me like the Cold Crush Brothers and this idea of a mixtape. It was the existence of this tool that had endless music, that had nobody interrupting it, and you didn't know who half these people were. Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was on there. You know what I'm saying? Like really old school stuff, right?
It's pre-podcast, pre-anything. People basically having radio shows in their bedroom that and then literally went to the world. But that went around the world. I'm saying like a lot of hip hop guys and DJs and stuff are army brats. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, that's real.
But they like, you know, Kevin Beecham and Ant and like a lot of these like hip hop like historians that I know were in Germany trading those tapes, trading you know what I'm saying? Like old school mixtapes. Like those things literally made it around the world
Around
before
the
the
planet.
internet, before streaming, before even radio made it, before the first hip hop movies. Yeah, people got those mixtapes and they were
Dude, I mean,
everything.
that was the thing, right? So it was right before my birthday. My pops was like, what do you want for your birthday? I was like, I need 2 turntables and a mixer. And he was like, okay. And he was like, you want a reverb? My dad and all of his family was always big into music, right? My grandfather was one of the first black DJs for black radio here in the Bay. So he used to do this thing. If you look up in Louisiana, the Dew Drop In, DEW, the Dew Drop In was a club that Cab Calloway and all the top greats of that time used to be there. So my grandfather, Robert Parker, was the MC. I still have a picture of him that says MC of the Dew Drop In.
Amazing.
And it's my grandfather.
Amazing.
My grandfather was an MC. So, and then crazy fast forward, Ray Love, the Bay Area dude who rocked with Tupac, his grandfather is Cab Calloway.
Amazing.
So our grandfathers used to kick it over music back in the day in Louisiana.
Crazy.
Right? That's nuts. So he gets me these things, and my dad had, you know, he was on the edge of hip hop, like observing it from afar, but not really tripping. And so he knew how mixers work. So the first person I ever learned how to scratch from was my dad.
Yeah.
He was like, here you go. Did the fader, I was like, oh, what? My dad is off the chain. So, you know, so now I'm in my room like incessantly. And like that is my intro to hip hop, man. Like that is really my intro to hip hop.
It's amazing whenever somebody like asks me, even if I get a written interview and they're like, how did you get into hip hop? It's like, no disrespect, but I know that this is a white interviewer. You know what I mean? Because that's a uniquely white question. How'd you get into hip hop? You know what I mean? Like, how were you exposed to this? Because the reality is like, because black communities, families are the cultural innovators and creators, there's a natural kind of like embodied continuity there where like,
Agreed.
It has to be explained sometimes to people that don't come from those families, communities, culture, that like, these are just the records from our parents. Like we're just playing our parents' records differently. You know what I mean? And
that's so real, bro.
And I mean, the slang and everything. Like if you go to like right now, if you go to a black family barbecue, there's this whole thing about dad jokes and people trying to use modern slang and things like that. There are grandmothers that know intricately all of the slang from their parents' generation until now.
Right.
They know how it's used. They know how to conjugate the verbiage.
They know the tone. They know the tone.
Everything. Like it's funny. Like you'll have an old like an auntie just like bust out some brand new slang that you just like. How do you know about that? And she's like, "You think I was born at night, but it wasn't last night."
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It's real.
Just like wow,
it's real, man. And so like this is how I fall in. So then one day I'm in class and there's this kid, white kid named Mark Spurlock. He was taller than everybody, he had curly black hair. And the Walkman, again, dating myself, the Walkman was a new concept, right? This idea that you could have a tape player that you could have in your bag or in your pocket, right? Yeah. So he's sitting and I was in Mr. Kong's class. Mr. Kong is doing his thing. R.I.P. Mr. Kong, he was a G. And I'm like, what are you listening to? And he's like, you don't know. Like, he's just like, get off me. I'm like, no, what are you listening to? He's like, you don't know about it. I was like, what is it? So he puts it on and it's some hip hop stuff that I had not heard. And I was like, you listen to hip hop? He's like, yeah, I got 2 turntables and a mixer at the house. I was like, word? He was like, yeah. He goes, come over on Friday. So I go to his house. Now, do you remember Dr. Dre's Surgery from the World Class Wrecking Crew? Yes. Okay. People that don't understand hip hop history will not know that solo scratch on the opening of Surgery at its time was a masterpiece of scratching skill and display. Like it was a masterpiece. Yes. So he gets on, he plays Surgery. I'm like, okay, because I had surgery, right? He says, can you do that scratch? And I was like, oh, no, man. Nobody can do that scratch. He said, for real? He turns it upside down, resets it up, and does exactly what Dre did. And then he just stopped it and looked at me. And I was like, Sensei. I was like, show me everything, dog. So we became a crew. It was me, him, and this other guy named Ravi. And so we were this, Ravi's this Fijian kid. I'm, a black suburban, and this white kid who lives on the black side of the burbs, right? We become the crew. So I'm bringing records. He's bringing records. My dad is into this. So he's taking me to all like old school Bay Area, T's Wauzi Records, The Warehouse. He's taking me to all the spots. Reminding, you want this, James Brown. Oh, that's, you know what I mean? Like I would play records for my dad and be like, whose beat is that? He'd be like, oh, that's so-and-so, that's downstairs. And then I could get samples. So, this was like a big part of my actual life. And then what comes from that is Ravi's parents moved to Hayward. And he gets down with another crew, but it's a rap crew, not a DJ crew. And one of those guys is a guy named Boots, and he thinks me and Boots should meet. Man. And I was like, cool. So I go to his house, meet Boots. This kid I had one of the biggest high top fades. I'm bald now by choice, but I shave it. But my point is I used to have a high top fade. He had a big one, the biggest. It was immaculate. And we would hang out and talk, and we became cool. And obviously he becomes Boots Riley of the cool. He becomes, the Boots Riley of Sorry to Bother You. You know what I'm saying? And everything else he's got going in the film space, and it's beautiful. And I just luckily met all of these people before they blew, just by virtue of being sincere. I went to all the parties in the hood. I went to any studio that I could go to. I made my first demo at Fantasy Studios, which I think is where they made that track clear. If you go to Fantasy Studio, everybody recorded at Fantasy Studios. Tupac, Digital Underground recorded at Fantasy Studios. That's where I made my first demo. You know what I'm saying? And my studio guy was Tupac and M's studio guy. His name was Darren. You know what I'm saying? Like, I go back, dog. And I'm just lucky. It's not that I'm that special. I think the journey of my life is one where my sincerity was my hood pass. How many times should I have gotten robbed and shot? How many times should they have been like, get away from the stage, you fucking nerd? You know what I'm saying? Like, real Jesus here. Anytime I walked up to the turntables, they were like, oh, this goes like that and da-da-da. And they would show me. People would show me. And so never got robbed, never got jacked, never got chased out of nowhere, never got beat up. Actually, one time got chased out of somewhere, but that was different. But by and large, I it's been an unbelievable journey, and one that I'm supremely grateful for.
Can we hear a little something about that first conversation with Eazy?
Yeah. I mean, so essentially what happened was I was failing out of high school. I never really tried. I had low self-esteem and there was a lot going on. Plus, I was a binge drinker.
In high school?
Yeah, in high school, man. I started drinking. People forget about the suburbs, dog. Like people talk about like, dude, the first person I knew that died was a drug dealer in the suburbs who got snatched by the Colombians and they clapped him. Wow. He was my boy's older brother. And no one said he was bad because he was a coke dealer. Because coke was in the burbs. I was just, just like, man, I can't believe they did that to Dan. Right? Wow. But it wasn't stay away from Dan's house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it was like, there was a lot going on in the burbs. And some of that was alcohol. There were, in the 80s, in most suburbs, suburban homes had bars, in-house bars. That was part of the entertainment thing. Oh, you got a bar in your house. So that's where I had my turntables and everything set up. Because the bar was right there. You could come in and out, right? So I had all my stuff set up on the bar in the downstairs of my parents' house. But there was all kinds of alcohol down there. So when we were young as 9, we figured out that if you looked at, okay, this is schnapps, this is brandy, that's vodka, right? Everything has these heights. Well, if we all sipped enough to keep the things looking level, parents never knew. So sometimes we would go from one house, sip the levels, next house, we're drunk all day, bruh. By the time I got to like 13 when Bartles and James came out, like I was not tripping, you know what I'm saying? And everybody knew you could go to the store in the hood and they would sell you alcohol. Like they didn't need, you know what I'm saying? Because they were just trying to get paid and didn't care.
And you just tell them this for your mom.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we could get 40s. And so I become a binge drinker big time. And so I'm failing. So long story short, my counselor, Mr. King, man, may Allah bless him. He was an amazing dude. So he had this crazy high pitched voice. And so a lot of people didn't respect his wisdom, but he was a brilliant human. And so he was like, hey man, you're failing everything but English. I was like, okay. He's like, you have F's and D's in everything but English. I was like, yeah. And he's
You
like,
got him sounding like Grammy from the Ohio Players.
dude, it was hilarious. You have no idea. So he was like, so I'm putting you on the journalism squad. And I was like, I'm not a journalist, man. Huh. He's like, no, you can write. You have an A in English. You can do this. You're going to write. And I was like, I went to Oceana High School. Oceana was known for swimming, football, and wrestling. Major. But I was like, I don't care about football, swimming, or wrestling. He was like, so what do you want to write about? I was like, hip hop. He's like, I don't care, boy. Just get out of my damn office. So I leave. So I had bought that weekend, Boys in the Hood as a single had just come out. Like I saw the guy open the box and say, we have this and we have this. And that was Public Enemy. So the first 2 records I bought on that day was Rebel Without a Pause and Boys in the Hood. 2 records that changed my life for totally different reasons.
Yeah.
We get home, I'm playing it, and I was like, this is incredible. And I was already a fan of Dr. Dre. Remember, that was 83. I was DJing Surgery. I'm seeing he's down with NWA. I'm trying to buy anything Dr. Dre affiliated with. So I see on the inside, it has a 213 number, whatever, right? Or 818? I don't remember. So I called down to the label, and I was like, hey, what's up, man? I'm a big-time writer, and I need to talk to Eazy-E about this new record. Is he around? And they're like, no. I said, all right, yeah, so here's my name and number. Have him give me a call. I think he's got a hit on his hands. Hung it up. I go play basketball, come back. My mom was like, oh, this boy named Eric called. He left his name and number for you here. And I was like, oh, word? Eric called from Los Angeles? Beep, bop, boop, bop, boop. Hello? It's Eazy. I was like, yes, Eric Wright. Yeah, it is him. Who's this? I was like, hey, yeah, my name is Jason, man. I'm calling to interview you about this Boys in the Hood. I think it's a smash, so I'd like to see if you'd be open to an interview. He's like, sure. Nobody's writing about us. Next thing I know, man, me and him are talking like all the time, dog, like all the time. So I interview him. My mom used to be a legal secretary, so she had stuff that she could hook up to a phone to like record a conversation for dictation and stuff. So I hooked that up, interview him. I used to have that tape. I don't have it anymore, but I used to have that cassette. And so I do the story for the Oceana Foghorn, this newspaper that has a circulation of about 200, right? And so one day Eazy calls me, and by now we're talking weekly, like for real, like we're talking every week, like, whatever. So he called me, he's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, what's up? He goes, oh, my manager, Jerry, man, he wanted me to ask you, did you write for the San Francisco Chronicle? Or is it that you write for the San Francisco Examiner? Because those are the only 2 big papers in San Francisco. And now, man, your boy is busted. You know what I'm saying? The jig is up, as they would say in the bank robbery films. Mm-hmm. I was like, look, man, I've been a fan of Dre since forever, right? I'm a kid. I got to do an article for my newspaper, man. So I hope you don't hate me, man, because I really love your music. And he sat there for about 5 or 6 seconds, and he just fell out laughing. He was like, man, I don't give a nobody writes about us. Run that shit. I was like, okay. And like, we were back to cool. Like, it didn't mean anything to him at all. And so I do this story called Eazy Does It Very Well. And that was before the album Eazy Does It. Like, he hadn't even, like, in the early days, people forget NWA didn't say what their name meant because they were already worried about. So in the thing, it says the group is called NWA. But they won't tell me what it means. Like it has that like in the article. Before that, Ice Cube was in a group called CIA, Crew in Action, right? My posse, the posse's getting big. Like, so I was blown away that Ice Cube was even leaving CIA to do NWA because that's how much of a West Coast hip hop fan I go back. Anybody go on YouTube, look in CIA, Ice Cube, My Posse. It's crazy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and you can even, I don't know if it's around that time or at that time, but you can even hear Ice Cube sounding like the Beastie Boys.
That's that. Yeah. The song is called Illegal. Okay. Ice Cube gets busy. The girls get dizzy. I mean, around the world in the schoolyard skizzy. I remember.
Yeah. Crazy. Like, yeah, man. Happening in my
you know what I'm saying?
Right
yeah, dude. Nah. And so so that was like how deeply entrenched I was. Now, around the same time is when I go to a house party, and that's where I meet Ray Love, and I'm always clowning and being stupid. And he goes, you remind me of my boy Pac. I got to introduce you. So fast forward Digital Underground happens. I go to their record release party for Sex Packets, which was a crazy party. Listen, in the history of hip hop, anybody who knows will tell you that the Sex Packets party was one of the coldest hip hop parties in the history of the game. Like, they were the masters of partying. Shock G, Money B, the energy, DJ Fuse, the energy that they created around him was massive. And
I think in the era of the like P. Diddy freak off expose, I think you might need to like not, I think you might need a little more clarification on that.
No, what I'm saying is that as a hip hop party, I don't mean about crazy freak off mayhem.
That's what I thought.
I
thought might be
I'm talking about like all of the best people in the room, the producers, the DJs, the dancers, and everybody. Like, hip hop, look, and unfortunately this particular party ended because Too Short's limo driver got shot in the face in the alley. That's what ended it. Because we were all like, hey, and the cops came in and it was this whole thing. And unfortunately, Too Short's limo driver was shot in the face and was murdered. But my point is, the creative energy in the Bay Area at that time, it was unbelievable. 89? I think so. Yeah, I think so. And that I meet Tupac there is my point. Is that I walk in early, Ray's there. He's like, hey, what's up? Da, 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 da. And like, we're talking. He's like, this is the dude I was telling you about. He's like, hey, man, this is at that time I was not yet Adisa, but they knew me as Most Ill. That was one of my first rap names, Most Ill. Anyway, so he's like, yo, this is Most Ill. He's like, hey, what's up, man? It's Tupac. Blah. We took a picture. Like, right then and there, we took a picture. And so, like, if you Google Adisa and Tupac, you'll see that picture.
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was there. And so, me and Tupac became cool, exchanged numbers that night, and we were friends until he was killed.
So we're independent. I've been independent since day one. Even when I was on a record label called Rhymesayers Entertainment, we were some of the early artists there that really were working as though we were a collective. And that's a record label that started from nothing, from some guys from South Minneapolis that just supported each other. We would do shows and none of us took the money. We put the shows in the pot, and then they made mixtapes and they would take the money from the mixtapes. Nobody takes any of the money home. We're not going to go buy a chain or even dinner. Like, let's put the money back in the pot, reinvest like that. And it grew into this big, beautiful musical movement. However, I learned so much in my 20 years there that it really became obvious to me that it was time to step out and start doing things on my own, on a business sense. So musically, it's a musical movement and it's a family, and those things never change. But on the business side, me and my first DJ, BK1, decided that we were going to step out and build our own platform, which is Travelers Media. Now, so the way to do that, to access that, and to really be part of what we're doing, learning series, the podcast, with 2 albums in 1 year. What are you talking about? 2 albums in 1 year? And I love both of them. The Love and Service album is out right now. Nobody promoted it. Nobody distributed it because they didn't like what we were talking about, but it's out and you all are supporting it. So you can go to brotherali.com, check that out. The Satisfied Soul album is coming soon. We're partnering with Mellow Music on that one. Shout out to them. But it's still an independent thing. We funded this album with your support. We shot the photos and had, mixed and mastered in the studio. We spared no expense, and we were able to do that because y'all support us. You know what I'm saying? And me and BK didn't really pay ourselves this year. Not like we should have, but we reinvested. We're doing that same old thing. So if you go to brotherali.com, you'll see that there's a mailing list. Sign the mailing list. I promise I'm not going to blow you up. Secondly, we've got something called the Caravan. The Caravan is our group of supporters, kind of like a Patreon. And there's different levels to get down with. Shout out to all the people that are part of that now. That's extremely important and it's very, very dope. And we really are building community there. But you can get all of our merch. You can get all the info about the tour. You can get all the tickets for all the stuff that we're doing. But definitely sign that mailing list. Get down with the Caravan. We love you. We appreciate you. We're doing what we love to do for a living. And we're just doing it with and for you. And that means everything in the world. Back to Adisa Banjoko. It's incredible, man. The ways that just, being being in these different elements and in these slices of life and culture just brings all of these things together. At what point does Islam get introduced into the equation to the point where, I mean, it's always there, like it's ever present.
Yeah.
But like, at what point are you like, no, I think I'm at, 'cause there were so many choices at that time. You know what I mean? And even the most prevalent expressions of Islam were not necessarily what we would call Orthodox or Sunni or just like global historical Islam. They were very unique to the shores of the wilderness in North America. Like we're talking about the Nation of Islam, the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, Moorish Science Temple, Dr. Malachi's York,
You know
and like those were the some of the main voices. So what was that journey like for you? I'm guessing, you know, Malcolm's autobiography and the film are in there somehow. But
so here's how it comes together.
Yeah.
So here's how it comes together. It's around this time that I meet Tupac. So what happens is my career in music has taken several different forms on this independent thing. And for a while, my DJ was a guy named DJ Disk, D-I-S-K. He was the DJ for Herbie Hancock a few years back. He lived across the street, catty corner to DJ Qbert. Okay. And the DJ culture in Daly City and the Excelsior district of the Mission was on fire at that time. Nobody could rock with those people at all. I wish I had some of the mixtapes DJ Disk used to make for me. All my G's know. He was second to none at that time. Long story short, I had gotten, when we would do shows together in San Jose, we would do shows at the car shows at the Santa Clara Convention Center. And be just lowriders everywhere. Me and Disk would go, we'd do some tracks, whatever. And he had a copy of Bring the Noise with the acapella. There was a small, like the first verse, I think, on the original B-side of that song, they had the first verse was an acapella for the yeah, boy, and all that, right? Yeah. So he had that. And I remember this Too Black, Too Strong thing. And I was playing it and I said, hey, Pop, who is this? He's like, oh, that's Malcolm X downstairs. So my dad had Ballads or Bullets as a record on wax, and he had Message to the Grassroots. Now, he used to play these records for me when I was going to Christian school. He would play these records for me on the weekends because he didn't go to church. So we would just listen to Malcolm. But he was Catholic. My mother was Baptist. And he would play these records for me when me and him would eat together. So I was like, oh, these are those records, you know, he used to play. So I'm looking for Too Black, Too Strong, right? Because I want to use it in my own track. Then I'm like, oh, if it's Malcolm, I'll use something different and I'll beat Public Enemy. I'll find something they didn't find, right? I can't find the Too Black, Too Strong. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to listen to the record then. And now I get all these bombs dropped on me. I flip it over. Still didn't hear Too Black, Too Strong. Now I have to listen to Ballads or Bullets. I think that's the one it was on. And I'm like, this guy's amazing. So I'm telling my dad, yo, Malcolm X. He's like, oh, yeah, he got an autobiography. You should read it. I read the autobiography. Around this time, I'm already talking with Kilu Nyasha and Bobby McCall. And I met another guy when I was on campus, and he introduced me to Sunni Islam. And I remember when I finished reading the autobiography, I couldn't tell. I had a conflicted understanding of Nation of Islam theology and Sunni theology. Like I didn't, I really didn't understand. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
We had some sort of amalgamation of what we heard on Brand Nubian records.
Yeah. Like it was hard to make sense of.
Somebody would give us a pamphlet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That might be, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever
and
you
so
could get at the library.
You know, or some kid moves from New York, starts using all this slang, and you're like, what? Right. So I ended up taking Shahada at 82nd MacArthur at the Masjid Al-Islam in Oakland. And it was a beautiful thing. It was before my 20. It was the tail end of 1990. So, when most people, when 91, February 91 is when I would have been 21. And most people are drinking and going to get drunk and da-da-da. Meanwhile, I'm like, Plymouth Rock landed on me, fool. I ain't celebrating, no. You know what I'm saying? So like, right. it was like that. So it was already in me. And that's part of what connected me and Tupac, right? Because he already had this revolutionary background that I was, my parents raised me to know a lot, but he was in a lot. You know what I'm saying? Geronimo Pratt is locked up and da-da-da. Mumia was not new, but it was, you know what I'm saying? Like it was more recent. And you know what I'm saying? Like I'm learning about other incarcerated political prisoners, and being at all these meetings. Yeah, Imam Jamil. I remember when that first popped off. You know what I'm saying? And so these were things that were a big part of my life. And so to your point about the parties and the stuff like that time, I also think one of the things that I think is sad about this horrible time that we're dealing with, looking at Diddy and all of the madness in hip hop, in the higher up business side of it, is that his shadow, his dark shadow, I'm talking about Diddy, and some of the other dark shadows of other people in hip hop's origin stories, unfortunately, right? Like Bam and stuff, they have left a shadow so deep and dark that now if I tell about a great digital underground story, we have to clarify it had nothing to do with freak off Diddy madness or whatever, because just having fun in hip hop is now a thing that seems alien. It's been so criminalized and dark within itself, within the culture, within itself in the business, that to be at a party with Tupac, having a great time at a show, right? Like, we have to address it. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because I wasn't even thinking that it could be interpreted that way, but it can and it will and it does because of what's happening, right? And that was just a great party that unfortunately it took a violent turn at the end, with Too Short's limo driver getting murdered. But that was a great party, right? It was a great party. DJ Fuse was on fire. I remember Eazy had sent him the Above the Law album before it officially dropped, and he played it. I mean, God. And to hear that in a club,
rap.
Oh my God! I mean, it was crazy, bro. That's what I got goosebumps from that. I got goosebumps from that. Not from, it was like this. Now, were there pretty women in the building? Of course, it was Digital Underground. But what I'm saying is the vibe was just up. And I am honored to be a part of that part of hip hop that was so real and so honest and so pure that it cannot be imagined in the now. I feel blessed by Allah for that, right? Yeah. So I take Shahada right before hip hop falls deeper into the gangster stuff, before the LA riots, before OJ, before 9/11. And so I was able to watch hip hop evolve in these massive moments and watch America confront these things about race and culture and class in ways that I never had. And I was writing for The Source. I was writing for Rap Pages. I met Chuck D when I was 19. First time he spoke at San Francisco State. That's when I meet Chuck. And he gives me his number, bruh. And I'm calling Chuck. You know what I'm saying? He's calling me back. I'm Flavor Flav. I remember one day Sister Soldier left a message on my parents' answering machine. And my mom was like, why is she calling you? Like, what do you possibly know or do that she would be leaving a message, right? Because I was trying to interview her for basically one of my first writing gigs was for the Commemorator, a Black Panther newspaper called The Commemorator. And so I was trying to interview her for The Commemorator.
It's a dope title.
You know what I'm saying? And it was coming out. Yeah, man, it was live, bro. It was live. That was my first writing gig. It was called The Bishop's Baseline. I wrote horribly, but I tried. And, it was an honor for me to attempt and do what they gave me the space to do. And that's because of Bobby McCall. That's because, my rap group, Freedom Troop 187, you can still catch some on Bandcamp. You can listen to that album. He was our manager, man. He was our manager. Bobby McCall was our manager. So he got us a lot of shows and it was cool.
And I mean, hearing that album, and I mean, we'll put a link to so that people can hear the album, because it's I am constantly going around the world. Like, I live in Istanbul now, and wherever I speak, what I normally, and I was just on this podcast called Blogging Theology. It's normally a very like kind of intellectual show about the Sharia and the theology of Islam and things like that. And so I'm on this podcast and I'm trying to constantly explain to people how deeply rooted Islam is in hip hop and vice versa. And there was a time when in both communities, it was so normal. So for us to be at the masjid and basically saying like, yeah, we're MCs, like we're rappers, we're breakdancers. Yeah. The imam would be like, oh, why don't you get up and spit something? You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times Imam Fahim Shuaib would be like, hey, y'all, Brother Ali's in the house. Turn around. Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah. Drop it, nephew.
Yeah, I
and I'm
believe
like,
it.
Okay, it's like Sway just put me on the spot, but it's the imam of the mosque right after Jummah, You know what I mean? We're eating bean pie and fish and spaghetti.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? People are selling oils and drop it on them, nephew. Bismillah. And like you have to have a verse ready for after Jummah. But then also for somebody like you or, you know, me or the people that we roll with to be at the sex pockets, freaks of the industry party as a Muslim, not drinking anything with a kufi on, maybe a tooth stick.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, just parked over there.
You know what I mean? And people just walking up, people passing a blunt around, and they go to pass it to you. Oh, I'm sorry, brother.
Sorry, bro. Yeah. That is exactly what happened. So,
I mean, that was the first time I was called Brother Ali. Don't hit that blunt in front of Brother Ali. Don't roll those dice in front of Brother Ali. He don't want this in his nostrils, in those holy nostrils.
No, and that's exactly how it was, right? And that was a beautiful thing that hip hop, you know, we don't give hip hop enough credit for giving room for everybody.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like we gave room for everybody. They wasn't like, oh, you Muslim now, I ain't got no time. Yeah, get this clown out of here, whatever. Right. And that was what was also interesting was, you know, I always got bad grades. I learned different than other people. I only have a GED. I do not have any kind of the only degree that I have. The only degree that I have is my black belt. That's the only formal training I have is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Nothing else. So if you hear me talking about Islam, if you hear me talking about Stoic philosophy, if you hear me talking about Chinese philosophy and whatnot, Machiavelli, know that it's self-taught. So any flaws in it are from that.
And what
I'm
about
just a
chess?
sincere student.
You have teachers
chess.
in chess,
yeah,
though.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But no,
too?
Dude, yeah, that's why I suck. I'm not that good. Right? Like, I'm not that good. Like, what I do is I get people interested, involved, and playing and knowing the history. As a chess historian, I'll stand with damn near anybody, right? As a chess historian, I'll stand with anybody. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I taught the curatorial staff at the World Chess Hall of Fame the history of hip hop and chess. I was a guest curator there in 2014, and this relationship between hip hop and chess broke the opening day record bigger than Bobby Fischer. More people came to the World Chess Hall of Fame to learn about hip hop and chess than they came to see Bobby Fischer's exhibit. The night of it, I'm in Bobby Fischer's exhibit on like the third floor, listening to A Tribe Called Quest bumping up through the floor. And I'm looking at Bobby Fischer's chessboard and his chair, and I'm like, all praise be to Allah. I cannot believe this. And Mike Brown's happening right then and there. RZA's downstairs. This is what hip hop does. This is what my sincere study has brought me as a beautiful gift. I'm not even bragging. I couldn't believe I was in St. Louis with RZA from Wu-Tang, having taught their curatorial staff about hip hop and chess. There's a line around the block, and people are like, there's never lines around the block to get into the the World Chess Hall of Fame. There's not lines, but there's lines. Right. And this is the wisdom and the beauty and the power of what hip hop can introduce an individual to. And if that individual wants better for themselves, they can go learn about it, you know, and that's what hip hop did for me in regards specifically to Islam.
Man, we're jumping a little bit, but since we're on the topic of chess, tell us about this big, like amazing chess cipher that you held in the Bay with Wu-Tang and Amir Suleiman and
yeah, that was crazy, right? So, yeah, I used to run this org called the Hip Hop Chess Federation, where we fuse music, chess, and martial arts to promote unity, strategy, and nonviolence, right? I came up with the idea with my Filipino brother, Leo Liberon, also known as Blast One of the most ferocious graffiti bombers.
Yeah, I heard of Blast One.
Dude, Blast One's hard.
Okay.
Always, though. So what he used to do back when I was in the first Zulu Nation chapter, we would put these book lists together and he would do graffiti. We would put it off on hot dope paper and we would go to shows and pass these book lists out. So we would do it Freedom Troop 187. We'd do it with Zulu events and stuff like that. Hold on. Now I started going into a whole nother wormhole. What was I talking about?
No, we're getting to this big like powwow cipher.
Yeah. So what happens is I set up me and Leo. That's how I was trying to explain how I knew Blast One. So me and Blast One knew each other. We put together Hip Hop Chess Federation. We do this event. I'm in LA doing a book thing with Sway and Tech on the Wake Up Show because I put out a book called Lyrical Swords Volume 1. Sway, God bless that man, had me on the show. Him and Revolution, like the whole tech. Everybody's like,
Carmelita
you need to
Sanchez.
talk. Yeah, Carmelita. Shout out to Carmelita forever. Oh my
she's
God.
dope.
I met her at the Gavin way back. You know what I'm saying? So
one of the unsung heroes of hip hop.
yeah, who really needs so much more love than she gets. But you know what I mean? Like, look at her life now. Her son's killing it and everything's good. Daughter's killing it. Like,
who's
you know
her son?
what I'm saying?
I don't know anything about that. Well,
her son is the main character on Cobra Kai.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the main character, bro. I remember where I was standing when she told me they're rebooting Cobra Kai and my son's going to be the main character. I was like, for real? Like 2 years before, and it blows up. So they're like, you need to meet RZA. I had already known Jizza, right? Here's the deal. So I call RZA. RZA's like, I'm down. But I met and knew Jizza from 1990 when he was on Cold Chillin'. We met and we became cool that day and stayed cool. Pre-Wu-Tang. This is like 1991 when he was doing Come Do Me on
Yeah, he had a whole career. Jizza.
Yeah, man.
Jizza's the real OG of their crew, honestly.
Yeah,
Jizza's
man, like for real, bro. Like his lyricism is no accident. You know, his lyricism is no accident. So we get cool. We do this event. I hook up with, I track down Josh Waitzkin, who the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer is about. Now, he, meantime, has left the chess world and gotten into Tai Chi, becomes a world champion in Tai Chi, and then starts working with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I was already studying at that time because I trained with Half Gracie, and I had interviewed Haleo Gracie and Hoist Gracie, so I was already in. So we become super tight, me and Josh. I get RZA together. We decide to go do this thing at the boys club, the Omega Boys Club in San Francisco. Cubert's there. DJ Kevy Kev is there. I mean, like the community, the real hip hop heads are in the building, plus random fans. And so while we were there was a guy who will remain nameless, but he thought it would be a good idea to kind of set up a cipher, but he was kind of going after one of the dudes, Rugged Monk. It seemed like he was trying to battle Rugged Monk in the cipher. And some of it dealt with this like Sunni versus 5% under vibe that only he was carrying, right? Only he was carrying this energy, right? And
there was that, but
there was
the
that
whole community, but there were people,
right? There were some
debate.
people, right? So in the cipher, when he would start rhyming, he would start trying to drop more Sunni things. But to be honest, he was not a formidable MC. He was not. And so him and Monk are going kind of back to back. And Monk is my guy, bro. Me and Monk are tight. And so I'm looking at this dude like, what is he doing? Why is he? What's the... Right? And so it's me, Amir Suleiman. I think he was there. RZA. And RZA was kind of on the perimeter of the cipher just watching. And he saw this dude's tone getting kind of ridiculous, blood. And he just leaned into the cipher and carpet bombed it. Like my instructor Gumby is standing. If that footage, it's somewhere still on YouTube, I think you can see Gumby, my instructor, standing like kind of two people over from like Josh Waitzkin, and Josh was in the hip hop, and Josh is like, they're both like, yikes. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see that we know RZA is just, and when he was done, like he shut the cipher down, man. He shut the cipher down. And you know, like, I would love to tell you that there were more of those things caught on film, but there weren't. But they happened. Yeah, they happened.
Yeah, I think for people that were around at that time, there's like some of the most amazing moments were not on film.
Yeah,
as difficult as that is to believe now, because everybody's recording everything.
Yeah,
and you know they say a watch pot won't boil.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
feel like the fact that we're recording everything means that less epic things happen. Maybe it's just because I'm in a different part of my life. So it's like my life isn't as epic as it was when I was 15. But I'm like, man, I think the fact that everyone knows everything is being recorded means that there's a lot less risk being taken.
Oh, man. You know, and it ruins the purity of the moment, right? The camera changes intentionality. Years ago, Halleck Gracie, he came to the Bay to do a seminar and he ended up sparring with my instructor. And they knew each other, and, you know, and it was me, my son, a bunch of other students, and they start rolling. And it was a incredible technical roll.
Wow.
And in the middle of the roll, my son nudges me and he's like looking at the phone like, and then I'm like, I'm like, no. And so we watch some more and they start going. And then he's bumping me again. He's like, get the phone, get the phone. And I pulled him to me. I said, son, listen, you are looking at two masters engage in a present moment. If a phone comes out, it could change the intentionality of how one wants to be seen, one wants right. I said, we need to embrace this moment and stay present because we will not see this again. And then at some point they stopped. Neither one of them caught each other, but they were close. And everybody's laughing and chilling, da da da. And the thing is that my son understood that some things just need to be left in that moment.
Well, partially because, you know, one of the things that like people tell us, especially once we, like when we first start to have an audience and we don't realize that we're that we're a public figure yet, somebody like Chuck D will tell us like, hey, people are watching and taking your lead now. You're not just doing and saying what you do and say for you. Like now people watch you. You know what I mean? So somebody like, you know, like you're talking about, like the Gracies are not going to like, if this is just a role between me and another person, then it is what it is. But if I'm being watched, then I'm like, okay, now I'm modeling this for all of the people that think that they're following my family's lead. Exactly. So it becomes a different thing and it's no longer, man.
It shifts, you know what I mean? It shifts. Yes. And it was such a pure moment. And I think you're right. A lot of times the cameras in today's moment do corrupt the purity of what could and should be sacred moments. So, you know, I shut down Hip Hop Chess Federation in 2019. I got this new org, 64 blocks. You know what I'm saying? Because there's 64 squares on a chessboard, 64 blocks. We fuse jiu-jitsu, chess, and meditation. I'm working with Raka from Dilated. Like he's one of my main teammate advisors on this. We were just going back and forth.
I still haven't had Raka on here.
Yeah, man, you got to do it, man. He's because you know how wise he is. Like he's like the super guru for me on a lot of things.
That's saying a lot.
And so no, like he really is, man. He gives me clarity on a lot. And so, you know, me and him are working together. RZA and Jizza know about 64 blocks, and you know, hopefully we'll have some things, you know, together in order because people miss the Hip Hop Chess Federation, right? But I mean, like the thing is that we're in a time where, you know, I mentioned what I mentioned and mentioned the value of meditation. You know what I mean? That meditation is important. And when I say meditation, I literally mean any kind of meditation. I have preferred ways that I like to meditate, but I'm not dogmatic about how anybody meditates, right? Whether they're doing Islamic zikr Allah, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter whether they're doing transcendental meditation, whether they're doing Zen meditation, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like meditation is a huge gift for humanity, and almost every spiritual or religious path has some form of it. And so this is why I'm such a champion of it, because I'm a champion of presence. We're losing our presence. These phones, all this technology, as beautiful as it is, as necessary as it is, as helpful as it is removing, one way it is negative is that it is removing consistent presence from us, because we're always trying to think, how do I look? How do I feel? Is the lighting right? Is it whatever? And that's ruining the moment to be authentic with yourself and each other.
Absolutely. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about specifically what it is about chess that, you know, that I know that you have really benefited. Like I said, you're a proponent, you're a spokesperson.
Yeah, I'm like a chess evangelist.
You are. Yeah, you're an evangelist. You're a da'i. Like you are a caller to chess.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that it's been really incredible for people in all different situations and circumstances. You know what I mean? For people who are suffering, you know, with mental health stuff, with people that are, you know, incarcerated, with, you know, quote unquote, at-risk youth.
Absolutely.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And it's also something that's employed by and loved by people of, you know, upper echelon education and things like that. What is it about the specific practice of chess that is so universal, seems to be so universally beneficial?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You know, one of the things is that chess is a game that when you know it, nobody can say that you're stupid, and you have to acknowledge your own intelligence. And it's one of the reasons why I teach it to at-risk youth, right? Because they don't think of themselves as smart. They don't think of themselves as worthy, as capable. And then what I would always do in the early days, I would play a game with a kid. I'd teach them the game. We go through this thing, and I'd get them to a point where they could like make a checkmate happen, right? And I'd be like, wow, man, like you actually know how to play chess now. And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, kings play chess. This is a game of intellect. Like Bobby Fischer, there's RZA, there's, Tupac played chess. And I was like, so now that you know you're intelligent, what are you going to do with it?
Uh-huh.
And then it's a challenge, right? Like now you can't deny that you're intelligent. So what are you going to do with this gift? You know what I'm saying? Chess is a game that there have been so many amazing studies done on chess. It helps reading and it helps math skills.
Incredible.
Right? Chess is a game that is played in like every culture of the world. If I threw you on a plane and you didn't know where you were, I promise you when you landed, wherever you landed, there is chess. Wherever you would land, there would be chess, right? And so this is an international language. It's not just an intellectual sport, right? It teaches people how to deal with conflict. It teaches people how to deal with recovery from loss. Like how many times you've seen somebody just get a whole bunch of pieces ate up and then figure out how to get a pawn to the other side. Now they're back, right? Our kids need that. They need to understand the beauty and power of focus, of planning, short-term, mid-term, long-term. Chess does all of these things, right? All of these things. And in a school system, the American school system, as nightmarish, ghoulish, and failing, as archaic as this, there is no reason why chess is not in every school in America. Every parent should be beating down the door to have chess taught in their school, period, because your kids need it. These schools are mausoleums for what masquerades as education. And we should be sad that we let it get here. But things like chess, martial arts, and meditation can absolutely re-energize our young children's minds, bodies, and spirits to be the individuals and collective societies that we hope them to be.
Yeah, man. And, not only is it a universal language, and it seems to be, and I mean, I'm a person that has always wanted to be, like, I've never really, spent the time to really sit with chess as a game. But, one of the things that I'm realizing being in another country is, I just had to renegotiate my rent. I just had to, try to get some paperwork in ahead of schedule so that I could try to re-up on my residency. You've lived overseas. I just had to they tried to throw me out of this studio last week because somebody decided to put the water heater boiler for the whole floor in my office. So now that everybody wants they're like, just give us a key to your office. It's like, no, give me a key to your house. What are you talking about? But so like, I'm in this space now where I don't speak the language. But it's me basically kind of like squaring off with these people from a different culture. And on some level, it's like I need to be able to separate the humanity of these people because I'm here raising my children here because I think these are good people.
Right.
But there's also an element of just interpersonal dynamics and survival. Like there's that survival element that's within humanity. And I was just thinking that, like, man, I bet if I played chess, I would be able to approach this from a much more, how would I say, balanced and measured response. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't need to take it personal that my landlord is trying to get over on me because she knows I don't know the law. That there are laws in this country protecting renters.
Right.
I didn't know them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like my rent is getting bumped up and I'm like, man, so, and so I can come into this being this like, same thing with dealing with a record label, the same thing negotiating with, okay, we lived in the Bay. There was a pimp that tried to set up in our building. You know what I'm saying? That's the Bay. The same thing with like, okay, there's a different minhaj of Muslims that are trying to like sway the voting in the masjid. The same, like really every time that people come together, there's some sort of matching of wits in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, in a like trying to raise children, in a like, there's always some sort of there's some strategic navigation that's going to happen between people. And I'm like, man, I bet if I had martial arts or chess, that it would really help develop that side of me in a way that's measured, where I'm not just like, oh, you think I'm stupid? Do you want to fight?
Oh, you trying to play me, huh? You trying to play Ali?
Like,
No, we're not playing Ali today.
Like, I don't look like what I've been through. I don't look like where I come from. I take these kufi and these Sufi pants off quick, then we can go
real
see what's
quick.
good.
We can happen. You know what I mean?
I'll show you what North Minneapolis about, Papa.
No, it's real. It's real though. But this is the way in which I was talking to a friend about meditation, and I was saying, you know, when you meditate consistently, you'll be in an interpersonal relationship at a store, at a gas station, something with a stranger that's kind of like off or whatever, and you'll deal with it so clean, you won't realize that meditation was why you got through it. It's like 15 minutes later, you're like, that dude was being hella disrespectful, but I just dun, and got out. And it's just because the ripple effect of being consistent in your meditation, the ripple effect of being consistent in your jiu-jitsu training, right, has made you just kind of quick parry. It's like, remember when Neo was moving hella slow, but he was stopping all it was like, and you just keep going. And, you know, this is part of what we need right now. You know, we are in such a strange, unprecedented political, religious warfare, genocide, things are happening all over. And like, if we've ever needed more chess-like mindsets, it's right now. If we've ever needed more mental flexibility and compassion for ourselves and others, it's now. If we ever needed to take on a martial art to kind of improve ourselves, get some self-esteem, and not use it to intimidate the other, whoever the other happens to be, that time is now, man. And so, you know, 64 blocks, you know, God willing, will be something that can help people from all backgrounds discover and engage themselves on a higher level and go on to be whatever they want. I think one of the reasons most people were frustrated with the Hip Hop Chess Federation, and still what they won't understand about 64 blocks, is that we are not trying to make master fighters or gurus or chess masters out of anyone. And that's what makes people mad. Because I think for the chess people, I just don't love chess enough. You know what I mean? For the mainstream, like competitive chess world. Like, I don't love chess enough. I don't care about the King's Indian opening. I don't care about how Mikhail Tal ended that game in 65 with so-and-so. I don't care as much. I think it's beautiful, but a lot of it is actually beyond my actual chess mind comprehension, if I'm honest. I can gain fragmental concepts from the games that I see in the positions. That's my gift. But my gift isn't like actually being a great player, right? You know what I mean? If you want great playing, you can go talk to Josh Waitzkin or Maurice Ashley, or I can point you in a bunch of different directions of great chess people. But a lot of chess people still don't lead great chess lives. They make bad decisions because they still have interpersonal problems with themselves, and they're not necessarily healed from their own things that they've dealt with. And so this is why meditation and physicality matters. You see what I'm saying? And so like, this fusion isn't a happenstance. This fusion isn't just a weird guy trying to put stuff together. This is a coming together of physical, mental, and spiritual tools that can feed each other in a way that transcends dogma. And that's all I'm really trying to do, to bring humanity together on a higher level. One of the scariest things you can do, and I know you know this fear because you're one of these people, is to be someone who actually genuinely loves humanity. When you genuinely love humanity, life becomes very lonely. Life becomes very dangerous.
Lonely and dangerous. Absolutely.
Bro, because nobody trusts you. The people who he's black, but not black enough. He's Muslim, but he ain't Muslim enough. He's jiu-jitsu, not enough. Chess, not enough. Rap, not enough. Everything, right? And so, like, when you really love humanity, it becomes lonely work, right? And, you know, I'm never going to impact the world the way I wish I could hope to. I'm never going to touch as many hearts as I wish that I could. But, like, man, these are some rough times, dog. And we need some people. I mean, it can't be just me and it can't be just you. I know there's others, right? But, man, like, stuff is out of pocket right now. And I'm just trying to use 64 blocks to help people engage the best humanity that they can find in themselves, and see it reflected in another person, and do right by each other on that alone, if it's possible.
This conversation with Adisa is really dope because he's so open and he's been through a lot. And I don't know where this is going to get placed in the conversation, but you will at some point in this conversation hear Adisa really open up about some of the most painful moments of his life and how he was able to turn them into triumphs and able to use them to help other people. And it's because of all these things that he's involved with. You know, he's a deeply devout Muslim, and he practices meditation, and he also does jiu-jitsu, and he also plays chess, and he's into Stoic philosophers. But also my man Adisa did therapy, not just stuff that's therapeutic, but actual sit down with a therapist therapy. I think it's really important to do. If you've never done it and you think it's corny and you think you don't need it and whatever, give it a shot. I mean, it's one of those things where you owe it to yourself to just know that for sure. Because what if there's some stuff in there that you really could benefit from? And even if it's not, if you don't consider it for you, what about your kids? What about your partner, your spouse? What about your business partners? What about the people you work with? What about the people who have to experience you every day? We all got secrets that we're keeping from ourselves, and we deserve to know what's in there. So I don't live in America. I don't have health insurance. So I did my therapy on betterhelp.com, BETTERHELP.com. You hear about it on a lot of podcasts all over the place. I heard about it on a podcast. My wife's a therapist, you know what I'm saying? But I did BetterHelp as my therapy, and it was extremely beneficial for me. I'm not in therapy at this particular moment, but I was off and on for a couple years. And I mean, it's helped me with my weight loss. It's helped me with my discipline. It's helped me with my business. It's helped me with my habits. It's helped me with my relationship. It's helped me with my marriage. It's helped me, you know, it's incredibly, incredibly helpful. There's times where I talk about my deepest, darkest stuff with my therapist. There's times where I would just say, I'm about to have this really difficult conversation with a person that I do not get along with. Can me and you just do some pre-coping, some strategizing in advance? You know, I'm mad at this person. I keep talking to them in my mind. I keep arguing with them in my mind, and I'm usually losing. What the hell is that about? You know what I'm saying? All of that is stuff you can bring to therapy. So I recommend it. Betterhelp.com/travelers. That's how you let them know that we sent you, or that you heard this particular guy on this podcast talking about it. Because if you do that, you get a discount, and they also give us a little commission to help the work that we do here. Betterhelp.com/travelers. Get down with the therapy journey. So I know that, you know, one of the things, several of the things that you are very interested in made a lot of sense to me right off the bat. It's like chess, yes, of course. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Martial arts, of course. Mm-hmm. Like when I see Lupe Fiasco with swords in the garage, it's like, yeah, that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, of course. You know what I mean?
Lupe, bro, do you talk to him? Do you know him?
Lupe is extremely like nice and genuine and supportive and sweet. Like every time I do something, he tweets it. He teaches one of my songs in his songwriting class.
What?
But that's I have gangster. This feeling like I don't know. Like I've tried to get close to him a lot of times.
Right.
And it just feels like I don't know if that's meant to be or not.
Right. You just can't. I don't know anybody around him. Like I've always wanted to like connect with him and build with him. My son, like from Kick Push, was always
like y'all would. Yeah.
I know, right? There's so many reasons and ways why me and him would vibe and kick it hard. And I think my boy Tahir was telling me that his dad used to be a martial arts instructor and all this other stuff.
Lupe's dad.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Lupe is not on the fringe of hood activity. Like,
Lupe
is
you know
from
what I mean?
the heart of it. So I just always chalk it up to like, man, he doesn't know me like that. Like he obviously likes what he sees.
So
it's I just have to give him his space.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, incredible. But so all of these things make sense. You know, Islam makes total sense. Meditation makes sense. Then, as your brother, I start hearing about these like Stoic philosophers.
Yeah.
A lot of whom are like, I kind of feel like these are the people that Dr. You know, John Henrik Clarke and them were telling us not to listen to. I was like, wait a minute, aren't these the people that we're not supposed to be? You know what I mean? And it's interesting, through you sharing what those people were actually saying, you know what I mean? I'm like, these guys are actually incredible. Like there's so much here. and now whether or not they're the authors of those
Of all
thoughts.
of it. Right.
One of the earliest things that we heard from, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy named Karis One, but he
Oh
says
yeah, knowledge reigns supreme. It does.
I know you have a storied history.
I'm not mad at Chris. We have our histories, but life is life, man.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get to that.
Yes.
Maybe we will not.
Yes.
But so one of the things that he said famously is like, you have these Greek philosophers. How the hell you create a philosophy when you kill philosophers constantly? Like he basically is like, they got all of this from the Egyptians. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that's, but you have introduced, so what is it specifically about? Like, how do you identify specifically within this wide range of philosophy, specifically Stoicism? What does that mean? What are some of the core tenets? How would one access, this tradition and benefit from it?
So it's crazy, right? Stoicism is an amazing path, and it has really helped me refine my understanding of myself and really helped me reconnect with other elements of Islam that I was already aware of. But these things are so seemingly ironically aligned. It's just fun. It's just fun. So what happens is I get divorced about 6 years ago after a near-death experience. Yeah. Like I literally almost bled to death. I had an H. pylori bacteria, which created these ulcers. I didn't know. I was passing out because I was basically bleeding to death slowly. So I got to get these 2 bags of blood. The first one doesn't work. And they're like, yo, it's this one, homie, or it's see you on the other side and we'll be playing Bone Thugs in about 20 minutes.
Either this bag goes in you or you go in a bag.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Somebody's going to, one bag's going to be empty. The other one's going to be full. Let's see which one it is.
Who wins? Right? So I start hitting some hardcore meditation, some hardcore zikr, and I come out in this really amazing state. The second bag works. Alhamdulillah, I'm here now because of it. And a few months later, my ex-wife is like, she bounces, right? So this was a huge thing for my brain and my spirit to comprehend, because I was like, whoa, like, after you almost die, you're usually a lot more hyped about your family and you're usually more hyped, right? And now these things are fragmented, right? So I'm like, whoa, right? So what happens is, the children are caught up, and it's very tough. Yeah. And so I was supposed to go to a seminar. There was a guy named Abraham Marte from the Dominican Republic. He was going to Heroes Martial Arts, and I was going to interview him about jiu-jitsu in the Dominican Republic and all this stuff. I don't make it. I'm in shambles. So he calls me, and he's like, where you at? We're supposed to do an interview. And I was like, oh, man, my marriage is collapsing, bruh. My lady's not here right now. She took the kids. I don't know what's going on. I'm crying. It's a whole bunch of stuff on the phone. So he's sitting there and he's like, bro, you need to be more stoic. And I'm like, what? He's like, you need to be more stoic. I'm like, what's that? He's like, it's a philosophy, man. He goes, you don't think I have problems? I got problems in the DR. I got problems trying to raise my kids. He goes, but I'm here doing jiu-jitsu, and you're supposed to be here doing jiu-jitsu, and you're not. And I was like, dude. He was like, you need to be more stoic. We'll talk later. It's all love. We get off the phone. So I was like, what is stoicism? So I did what I never did before and went into YouTube to look up something. Like I'm a book person. I'm an old school dude. I read these. And so, but I knew in my house I didn't have a book that was going to tell me anything about stoicism. I found this video on stoicism, and it was a great video on modern stoicism. So I watched it. I fell asleep to it. I woke up. I played it again. I started going into the wormhole. I started buying all these books on stoicism. And so, stoicism is a philosophy that comes out of Rome and Greece, and it is focused on like self-mastery, right? Especially mastering your emotions. And a lot of times people think that stoic means to not feel anything, but what it really means is to feel all of it, understand why you feel the way you feel, but then no matter how you feel, you take the most virtuous and the best act. irrespective of how you feel. It's not like I don't feel anything. I am impervious to emotion, right?
I am a robot.
Yeah, but a lot of people pretend that that's what it means. That's actually not. Empathy is a big part of, and compassion is a big part of Stoic philosophy. So as I start reading it, I'm like, well, that sounds like Al-Ghazali. Well,
absolutely.
That sounds like Al-Haddad. Well, that sounds like, and so then my brain starts making these big, you know what I mean? These, because that's what I do, right? Jiu-Jitsu, chess, meditation. Now I'm like, Sufism, Stoicism, Sufism, Stoicism, Taoism, Sufism, Stoicism, Taoism, Buddhism, right? And so this is where my brain's already going, because I read a lot of the work of Socrates before. I read a lot of the pre-Socratics. I'm talking about in them early days when KRS-One was dropping it, and Dr. Jen Henry Clark, who I did know, right? Who I interviewed. Dr. Clark? Yeah, I interviewed Dr. John Henry Clark for my first book called Contemplations of a B-Boy, which still exists. That manuscript is still at my parents' house.
Crazy.
I still have that. He was actually a great, he taught me something measurable. I sent him a bunch of my work. I called him and I was all excited for him to tell me that I was the next coming of the black writer, that I was the next Baldwin that the world needed. And I was like, so what'd you think? It was good. I was like, what? It was nice. You have some good things here and they're strong. And I was like, so what should I do? And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, do you know Runoko Rashidi? And I was like, yeah. So for those that don't know, Runoko Rashidi wrote African Presence in Early Asia, right? And you need to get those books if you're not up on it. So he goes, well, Runoko decided that he would pursue the history of the black man in Asia, you see. And I was like, yeah. And so what? He goes, so what are you going to write about? You know a lot about black history. You know a lot of things, but you need to be like Runoko Rashidi and specialize in a specific kind of history that the black man and woman have contributed. And I was like, okay, I will go do that. You know what I mean? So when you see me writing about all these crazy things, that's part of what I've been doing, is trying to find these unique histories and grasping them and pulling them in, right? And so,
so for those that don't know, Dr. John Henrik Clarke he's always, for decades was a scholar on all things Pan-African and Black, and he was an early advisor to Malcolm X. So he supplemented what Malcolm actually knew and was learning from the Nation of Islam and from whatever he could get his hands on. But Dr. John Henrik Clarke was like one of his ministers of information, for lack of a better, and was able to be very, at the same time, supportive and also deeply critical of scholars and lecturers and movements and organizations, and would debate and all. He
was unbelievable. Yeah, and he was a poet
was
too.
Not necessarily a fan of Islam, as far as I understand.
Yeah, at times he was very critical of Islam, but he was a poet before he was a historian, and that's why he was such a he was a poet, a seasoned poet, a great poet, and so that's why his scholarly work feels so unacademic, because he was a poet discussing intellectual things. Right. And so, Dr. John Henrik Clarke was incredibly wise, and he was, to me, the Jordan or the Kobe of Black history, and how to say it and share it and embody it, not just bark out dates at people and point fingers. He was an amazing scholar. And I'm so lucky to have had so many different kinds of conversations with him over the years. And I have an autographed picture of him. I don't have autographs of many people. I was like, I need an autographed picture of you. And he gave me one. So, so the thing is that, I got into Stoicism and I was in therapy because, you're coming out of a broken marriage and you're trying to figure it out. And Stoicism just really proved to help remind me of so many things that I had gotten from different people like Al-Ghazali and Al-Haddad and others. And so, I started this thing called the Resilient Men's Group, because people started seeing me not long after the divorce, like up. I got my black belt. I'm traveling back and forth to the UK. I'm doing seminars, and people are like, wait a minute, you just got divorced, my guy. Like, how is it that? And they think that I had some kind of secret sauce, or that something was special about me, but really I was in so much pain. I had to confront so many things about myself, about my life, about choices I had made, about things I didn't understand, about love and religion and communication and, you know, my own personal history, that I didn't have a choice but to heal. Yeah. People think that I was some kind of like Superman, but it wasn't. It was lots of nights crying at 3 a.m. by yourself. It's reading Stoic philosophy and then listening to a khutbah and then going from that and listening to a Buddhist lecture and then going from that to go do jiu-jitsu and then pulling away from the mat so you can cry in the corner in the middle of practice because you still haven't made sense of anything that you're doing. And so this was my life. And that is unattractive and that is unfun. But that's what it actually takes to heal. You know, that's what it actually takes to heal. I remember I was reading Seneca's How to Die. And I remember my parents were like, is this boy about to kill himself because he's going through it? Like they were tripping. Like everybody knew I was on some fragile stuff, you know? Yeah. And I remember I was putting How to Die on the bookshelf when it hit me that I was not the first or the last man to be divorced. That at this very moment, there is a guy in China on the phone with this boy saying, I don't know what she's thinking, bro.
I don't think she's coming back.
Right. You know what I'm saying? There's a guy in Iraq. There's a guy in Senegal. Right. There's a guy.
Time to leave me, Lucille.
Okay. I remember I was like, ka-ching. And I was like, you are not the first man to get divorced. You are not going to be the last man to get divorced. Yeah. Like how many people in humanity have been divorced and broken up? How many
Muhammad
broken hearts
was divorced? It also doesn't mean like I hate when people say it was a failed marriage.
Right.
It's like as Muslims, it's like I'm sorry, the Prophet Muhammad didn't fail at anything.
No, not
like
a thing.
It's the way that some, you know what I mean? Like some things have a time period and that, you know, and that time expires.
Right. And so I was like, well, then all of them didn't collapse and turn into nothing. Why would you collapse and turn into nothing? Mm-hmm. You've got other things to be. And if you can figure out through the collapse of this marriage, how to be a better human, a better, you know what I mean? Just across the board. Right. Then you can be better. And so I just leaned into that. You know, but again, I'm a reader of Stolen Legacy. I went to lectures by many African scholars about the African origins of different aspects of Greek philosophy. And it never, look, I'll tell you something when people, because there's also been a lot of academic pushback against the discussion of these African origins, right? But I want to share something with you. And this is for the people that know Socrates. If you read the Apology, at some point, the guy who's cross-examining him, they have a conflict about something. And Socrates, trying to share his level of honesty, says, I swear by the dog of Egypt that such and such is true. Uh-huh. Pause that tape.
Yeah.
Did he just swear by an Egyptian god to prove the clarity of his honesty? Mm-hmm. I've never seen a Greek historian explain why Socrates would say that, really. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do I believe ultimately that there is the African origin of Greek and Roman philosophy at its cornerstone? Probably. I would be very shocked if that wasn't the case, only because the history of Egyptian Kemetic philosophy is so expansive. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't just a thing, right? It was expansive. It lasted for several thousand years. And there were rites and ceremonies and books. And we, you know, people always try to say, well, Africans didn't write stuff down, but they don't talk about the burning of the libraries in Alexandria. Right. We don't know how to build the pyramids because Europeans and Arabs burnt down the architectural notes, right? Like it's not, how did they build this? The world may never know. We don't know because white supremacy and Arab racism burned it down. Don't act like you don't know, right? Or that there was never an answer. Don't pretend there was never an answer. Yeah. You killed the authors of the answer and you burned their books. So look here, show you this book right here. This book is called Marcus Aurelius by Farquharson, ASL Farquharson. This is him writing about the life of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, right? Listen to what he says. I wasn't even looking for this. Okay? This is what happens when you read books. Everything in on Audible, people. Check this out. He's explaining about the evolution of Greek philosophy. Listen. So he says the leader of this movement was M. Cornelius Fronto, and the most distinguished writer was, I'm going to butcher this, all of my Greek people, Apuleius of Madarus. Listen, both of them were Africans. Whereas the Flavian epoch, a great number of the most eminent men of Rome and Roman letters were from Spain, now under the Aeolian and Antonine dynasty and is of itself Gaelic expression. And these letters came from the Latins of the provinces of Africa. From this time down to Tertullian, Cyprian, Arnobius, Augustine, the most vigorous and original Latin writers were all of African extraction. Mm-hmm. I didn't make that up. I didn't even try to create this moment. I came across this last week. So there's no doubt. Yeah. They tell you who their teachers were. Yeah. They tell you, right? But what that also doesn't do is separate Greek and Roman philosophy from its own greatness. It's like saying because the what we rapped on came from the 70s and 80s, right? That hip hop didn't happen. It doesn't matter because of Funkadelic. It doesn't matter because of James Brown. You can't do that. Right. You can't do that.
Yeah. Culturally connected people are very happy for their parents to be great, for my greatness to be is just an extension of my parents, and my grandparents were even greater than us. And I'm just trying to extend the light from those lamps, you know what I mean, and add on to what was before. Whereas a colonial anti-human kind of mind state says, I'm the first. I have to be the first. I've got to be the creator. I've got to be the innovator. I've got to be.
It only comes from me and our people and those that look like me. And when you're
we invented it, and so therefore we evolved. The people before us were all crawling around on the ground, and they didn't know what to do about anything. And we invented humanity itself. The people before us were not as human as we are.
Man,
and it's just like, man, anybody that knows anything, even about just, and like with all of these things that you're mentioning, there are also traditions that are embodied and passed. They're best and most authentic and most true when they're passed from student to teacher directly.
Come on, man.
And so anybody that takes something like that is like, whatever I have was given to me by my teacher. And you know what I mean? And their teachers and their teachers and their teachers' teachers. And so there's always this kind of, continuous, there's this continuity thing, you know what I mean? That also keeps them in check and keeps them from going off the rails as well. You know what I mean? You see people stray away from the herd, and that's when things get off track. But when people are connected to a community of, wise teachers who are also students, and the students and teachers, it starts to mesh and blend together.
Come on, man. And that's what makes humanity fantastic, right? Yeah. So I'm going to show you something. This was... Did you ever read this book? Did you ever hear about this? The Teachings of Ptahhotep, the oldest book in the world. Okay. So this was translated by Asa Hilliard. Only get this translation. For those that can see this, it has a black and yellow cover. There are other translations
casual would try to get
that are trash. Yeah, there are a lot of horrible translations of this book. Okay. Now, it's not just the oldest book in the world. It's the oldest complete. So there were probably books from China and other, like people say that outdate the Teachings of Ptahhotep. But the deal is that his was complete. You know what I mean? Sometimes a page or two is missing. There are fragments, the pages got damp and rot. Listen to some of the stuff that's in this book, right? Which was first published 2388 BC. 2388 BC. So who was Ptahhotep? He was a man that was slated to actually be Pharaoh, but he didn't want to be Pharaoh. He was a spiritual man. So rather than be like, you'd always see like in Europe, at least and stuff, you see like the brothers and sisters trying to kill each other to get and thing. He was like, you know what? Let my brother be Pharaoh. I'm going to just stay on the spiritual thing. So when his brother got ready to retire, he was like, hey man, I'm about to pass the mic to my son so he can lead. Can you write a book for him so he can be like a good dude? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Kablow. Okay. Now, no disrespect to any of the people who talk about all that Medu stuff, whatever. I'm not mad at them. I'm happy for them, but I never hear them quote this book.
Amazing.
I never hear them mention the Teachings of Ptahhotep. So
I've heard of Imhotep.
Yeah.
But I've never
Imhotep
heard
was the architect of the first step pyramid.
Okay.
Right. But Tahotep was a scholar and a spiritual man. So let's read some of his stuff. And I have a point. I have a point in this. Point 29. If you are angered by a misdeed, then lean toward a man on account of his righteousness. Pass over the misdeed and don't remember it, since God was silent to you on the first day of your misdeed. He says, if you are an official of high standing and you are commissioned to satisfy the many, then hold to a straight line. When you speak, don't lean to one side or the other. Beware lest someone complain, saying to the judges, he has distorted things, and then your very deeds will turn into a judgment of you. Man, this guy was dropping bars. When I read this book, I was blown away. And so when you really look at the highest levels of Egyptian Kemetic thought, when you look at the highest levels of Roman and Greek thought, when you look at the highest levels of Islamic, Arabic, Sufi thought, it sounds like echoes of each other.
Yeah.
And what you really start getting to is when you start seeing humans and yourself on a higher plane, you start seeing more of yourself in those humans. And this is why when you look at Socrates, he said something at Ford's time was mind-blowing. He said, I am not Greek, nor am I Athenian, but I am a citizen of the universe. Bro, still gives me chills. I remember when I read that for the first time, I was standing in a mall and I saw it on a t-shirt. I used to work at this place called the Museum Company. They would make all these stupid knockoffs of ancient stuff. Remember that?
Yeah,
so there was a t-shirt. And when I saw that, and I had read Socrates, but I had never.
They were trying to make like philosophy merch.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like, I was really blown away by that. And I was like, at that time, to say you weren't Greek was to say you weren't human. To say you weren't Athenian was to deny your whole self. Because based on your land base, you were just Aztec. You were just Kemetic. You were just whatever. Right. So what a forward thinking mindset. And so I pledged from that day forward to be a citizen of the world. Right. Like, and that doesn't mean that I'm not proud to be black. It doesn't mean I don't love and won't defend my people. It doesn't mean that I won't love and defend Islam. It doesn't mean that I won't love and protect everything that I know about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But what it does mean is that I'm never going to be so dogmatically in my ways that I can't see you, your humanity, your right to be at peace with yourself and how you live, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is for me, you know, again, back to this struggle of the lover of humanity. This is what happens to you when you're serious. If you're serious.
There's so much that we could, like I said, like this has to be the first of many. We should actually maybe holler at some people about doing just having a ongoing podcast together.
Yeah, bro, we can set it
for real. I mean,
we can set it.
That's why I had to really name at the beginning, because there's never going to be a good spot to stop. You know what I mean? And so, I think if we could, you know, with the understanding that we are going to come back.
Yes.
You know, you touched briefly on, after all of these years of contributing so much and you know, doing so much and being involved with so many, you know, great aspects of life and culture and art and movement and education and, you know, all this stuff, that you really in this past several years have undergone some of the greatest challenges, you know, as somebody that knows you, of your life. And it seems to me like not only did you lean into self-improvement, but also a lot of service of other people. You know what I mean? A lot of teaching, a lot of, you know, like, you know, I know people that were also going through stuff. So I think it would be okay for me to say that our brother Muhammad Saifullah, who we both just love, like, I will kill everybody for Muhammad Saifullah.
Twice.
I love that brother so much.
Twice.
For people who like, I used to do advertisements for Udamentary on here.
Yeah.
So Muhammad Saifullah is like what you are for chess is Muhammad Saifullah for Oud.
Yeah.
But he was an NFL dude. He's a trainer. And like a lot of us, you know, went through some really difficult times in life. And at that time, you were training him, right? You trained Saifullah in jiu-jitsu. And he started, and I remember so much him training. He's like, man, I got a tournament coming up, and just seeing like the look on his face. And I don't know if he must have had some, but I'm like, man, I'm just looking at these two beautiful men, these two beautiful black men healing together.
Bro.
And you know what I mean? That I'm like, man, just having some semblance of what you were going through and also what he was going through, and like focusing on this thing that's just, you know,
Bro.
so incredible and beautiful. Like just seeing you lean into serving others, people that I know personally that like, I wasn't in America. I couldn't put my arms around Saifullah at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know that like maybe you are tapping him.
Oh man,
maybe you're tapping him out, but you do have your arms around him. Somebody's got arms around Saifullah.
No, we all have our arms around Saifullah. He's a good dude. He's hilarious. He's so well intended. Yeah, you know, we were just exchanging some messages a few weeks ago. Yeah, he's cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know what I'm saying? He looks amazing. It's just he's chill. He's chill. So, you know, the thing is that, you know, my friendship with him was instant. I met him through a brother named Tarek when I was teaching chess and jiu-jitsu at Zaytuna College pre-pandemic. And I remember he came in, he was like, oh, this is Saifullah, man. Da, da, da. And I looked at him and I was like, he's real. He's here for the real, right? And what I mean is like jiu-jitsu has different ways that you can experience it. From like, hey kids, let's do jiu-jitsu, to you will question everything about your humanity in the midst of this clash. I knew he was there for all of it. And we clicked immediately. There was no get to know, oh, he seems cool. It was boom, we're good. Here's my number. Let's build. Let's go. And there were times when we couldn't coach during the pandemic. He would ask me things to do. I would be sometimes mostly on the phone, sometimes on video, telling him to do different things. And you know, when he would compete, you know, one time I took him up to Jiu-Jitsu World League. We drove up together, me, him, and his daughter, and he got gold. One time he got silver, the next time he got gold. Like we are just deeply connected. And, you know, the opportunity to teach jiu-jitsu at Zaytuna College for the short period that I did was a mind-blowing experience. You know, Imam Daoud Yassin, it was all his vision. You know, he just got his blue belt. He just got his blue belt. You know what I'm saying? And he's just doing his thing. Right? Yeah, man. And he's just doing amazing things. And, you know, I'm very impressed. But like, you know, he made me a better man and a better Muslim by giving me that opportunity. I learned so much. Even though I was a jiu-jitsu teacher, I learned from the students better than a whole bunch of years, you know, just observing them and having dinners with them and, you know, coming in on the conversations that they were having. And so, you know, Imam Zaid, I'm grateful to him forever. You know what I'm saying? Everybody over at Zaytuna did amazing things intentionally and unintentionally by giving me the space to have that class there. And so, you know, but what that meant was that I had to look deeper into what it meant to be grappling as a Muslim, right? Mm-hmm. How do we as men, like I was, you know, I remember thinking to myself, like, you know, like I get frustrated sometimes when I hear Muslim scholars speak about grappling, because you can tell by the way that they speak that they themselves are not grapplers. You can tell, right? And it's kind of like, you know, when someone means well when they're talking about hip hop, but they don't know what they're actually saying. And you're like, oh, I know you meant that in the best way and with the best intentions, but you're very off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, but there are like, you know, Imam Daoud, Sheikh Ibrahim OCF, right? Ooh. Like who are super serious about it. I met him briefly in Sheffield, you know, and it was a beautiful moment. He meant to come to two of my seminars, one in Liverpool and one at Mustafa Mount. He couldn't make either. When I bumped into him in Sheffield, he was so friendly, so kind. I met him through Mustafa.
I'm scared of him. I haven't met him yet.
He's amazing.
I've listened to hours of his lectures.
Hours. Do you hear me? Right? All day.
Remember,
right?
He was a ninja.
You know what I'm saying?
The streets ran with blood.
Yo, he's so inspirational, right? And there's so many other good people that, you know, my friendship with Saifullah, like, will always be special. And if I talk about him too much, I'll probably cry. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? And so like what jiu-jitsu has given me is a deeper level of connection with so many different Muslims in this world. You know, there's this book everybody should get by Nisar Sheikh called Prophetic Grappling.
Wow.
Right. And it's about how the prophet, peace be upon him, was a grappler. It's about how and Nisar Sheikh, look, he even autographed it for me. He even autographed it for me. He left it at Zaytuna and it sat there for some period of time. And then one of my brothers was like, hey man, there's a book here for you. And I had been trying to get this, and Saif Allah was going to send me his, but I said, don't send me yours. Keep yours. I'll figure it out. And this book was waiting for me at Zaytuna while I had been walking around the planet trying to find it, just to show you, right? And that was because of Imam Zayd, right? Because of Imam Zayd, right? And so I'm grateful to them both. And so this is a book that breaks down not just that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a grappler. He explains the different role of the masjid in society, that it was not just a place to pray and leave, that it was a place for commerce, for different exchange, and wrestling and training the young men was a big part of what that was about, right? And the importance of grappling in Islam. And I pray that every parent, get this for your sons and your daughters, you get them into this, you get them understanding that when you look at the UFC right now, whether it's Islam Makhachev, whether it's Khabib, whether it's Hamzat, whether it's, there's so many Muslims, right? There's this dude, I'm blanking on his name right now. He's got one eye that's blind. Have you seen this guy?
No.
Dude, his nickname is like Double Bullet. Listen when I tell you. This man went into the cage last week. He's standing in front of the dude. He does a spinning back fist, connects, and comes right back around, hit him with another spinning back fist, and the man just dropped. Had I not seen it, I wouldn't believe it. Had I not seen it, I wouldn't believe it. But I am telling you that God's grapplers are all through modern MMA. Do you hear me? There are Muslims all through modern MMA. And if you're an outsider to Islam, you will think that this is some surge. You will think that this is some new thing. You will think that what's going on with the Muslims and why do they want to place in MMA when they don't understand that the sunnah of grappling, the tradition of grappling has always been in our community. And this is just a resurgence. There's a rapper, Central C. Have you heard his song called Habib? He got a song called Habib. And he uses Habib at the end of the track. I want to say Alhamdulillah. I'll say this. You don't like
you don't
this.
Like it, guys.
Yeah,
but
that's on the.
Guys.
That's
Allah
on the.
Give me everything.
Exactly, and that's in the track. Central C is one of the realest, biggest rappers of this modern era, especially in the UK, right? And I don't even think Central C is Muslim, but that's the kind of impact that Muslim grapplers are having on the music, right? And having on modern society. And so, you know, and I'm actually doing a disservice to a bunch of other Muslim champions who I'm not even naming right now because there's a soup of them swirling in my head, right? But what I'm saying is that, you know, this is a time for Muslims, especially the parents, right, to take a moment to step into helping their sons be better men genuinely. You know, in the Quran, right, like it says, right, that we are guardians of women. It doesn't say that we're rulers and meant to be the kings of women. It says that we're the guardians. And then I see these dudes acting tough. I know they can't jog 2 blocks. I know if you put them on the ground and got on their neck a little bit, they wouldn't be happy, right? They'd be crying. And it's like, yo, man, like we need to understand that, you know, the sunnah of grappling is a lost sunnah. I am one of the most flawed Muslims I know. And this doesn't mean that I run around doing drugs, acting crazy, womanizing or anything. It means that just as a Muslim, I don't feel like I'm especially that knowledgeable. I don't feel, you know, I haven't been to Mecca or anything. I haven't studied with anybody in Yemen or Senegal. And so in the scope of the kind of Muslim that I can be, I'm very small. What I do have is knowledge of jiu-jitsu. What I do have is knowledge of Islam. What I do have is knowledge that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a grappler and that we can use this to make our ummah better. And I'm telling all of you parents, please, man, I'm watching your kids come in and they looking like they're in the middle. They look like they're in their mid 40s and they're 15. That's unacceptable. That's not how we're ever meant to be. Right? You letting them be on the phone, you letting them be on the computers, you letting them game too much, and they're getting far away from their potential, right? And a lot of times, it's like sometimes I feel like Muslim parents have taken on some of the negative aspects of like what sometimes you hear about the negativity in like the Chinese community about parents being overbearing. Oh, you're not a doctor, you're not a whatever. Their ability to, but they go, oh, like, yo, you should get your kid into grappling. They don't want him to grapple because they're afraid, well, if he wrestles, then he won't want to be a doctor. Right. So they're like, you need to wrestle them books. You need to grapple with those grades, right? So you can go buy a house and not realizing that trying to be a doctor is so stressful. If only they taught their son how to grapple, he would have the himma, right? He would have the sabr. He would know it on a different level, right? So I'm not a great Muslim. I'm not a Muslim that anybody should listen to in too many spaces, but you should listen to me when I talk about the blessing of grappling, when I talk about how every masjid has space for it, when I talk about how there's no reason why every masjid shouldn't have a grappling room and a qualified, legally background checked instructor in there's no reason. And the only reason it doesn't happen is because these parents are deluded, looking into their son and their daughter's dunya instead of making sure that they keep going in the son of the prophet, peace be upon him. And they'd rather talk about all these things, like, you know what I'm saying? I like to talk about philosophy, and I like to talk about oud and tea and everything else. But man, we need men to be better men and to be better guardians of the sisters and the elders in this community, because we have our own problems, man.
Man, I think that's I hate to end it, but
now we got to do it.
We just got to hit it at some point, man.
Yeah, man.
But man, I appreciate you, brother. I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too, man. Thank you
for your time and for just sharing yourself and your wisdom. And it's really, really deeply appreciated.
No, man. Thank you. On the way out, I'll just say, we've been trying to have this conversation forever. It was worth the wait. I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your patience with me. I appreciate your openness to rock with me, because I know I can be a weirdo to a lot of people.
Oh man. No, I look up to you. To you.
That's mutual, man. That's mutual. And if anybody's trying to holler at a scholar, please do so at real, the number 64 and blocks, real 64 blocks on IG. And my podcast, Bishop Chronicles, will be dropping new episodes. I haven't dropped any in years. I'm going to start dropping episodes in January. So look forward to that. You can join on Apple and stuff like that, Spotify, whatever. But I would love to have you tuning in. And I assure you, Ali will be a guest once I get this thing rebooted.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man.
Man, thank you.
Special thanks to my dear brother, my friend, Adisa Banjoko, Adisa the Bishop. Time to holler at a scholar. I want to say at the end of this that, Adisa has a lot of stories about a lot of people. And one of the stories that he has that I didn't really want to share here, but it is out there and it's an interesting story. Adisa almost got in a physical altercation with the legendary KRS-One. And there is a podcast called The History of the Bay Area. And if you go listen to Adisa on that podcast, you can hear that story. And it's actually a really beautiful thing that they did not come to blows. They did not get in a physical altercation. At the end of the day, they disagreed about some really important things and they were able to work it out like the beautiful community leaders that they are. So if you want to check out that story, you can go there. I could have asked him here. It would have been really fun, all that stuff, but we're not here for that type of thing. And no disrespect to anybody that does that, but we're here to talk about timeless universals, not to talk about individuals, not to talk about beef and tea and all that kind of stuff, even though it gets a lot of clicks. And maybe our podcast suffers because of that, but we're independent. And so we're here to do things the way that we really deeply in our hearts believe in them. So we appreciate that. That being said, we would love your support. Please like, share, subscribe. Really do that. Don't, like, people say it, but please do it. And then go to brotherali.com and you can sign the mailing list. You can join the caravan. We're out on tour. By the time you see this, we're going to be on tour in a van every day, away from our babies. For me, I'm going to be away from the country I live in because we want to see you. We want to be with you. We want to connect with you, sweating and pouring our hearts out and beating my voice up and all that kind of stuff, just to be in a room with you. So if you don't do any of the other stuff that I'm talking about, come see us if we're in your city. And if we're not in your city, feel free to jump on Google Flights or something, get a cheap flight and come see us. I promise you that I will make it worth your while. This podcast is produced by BK1, aka Brendan Kelly. And for the first time, this episode, I believe, is going to be edited by our brother Don Kufi, who is the newest member of our Travelers Media team and family. So much love to our brother Don Kufi. We hope that you enjoy this. And much love to all the people that listen to the show and give me feedback and all that good stuff. We love you. We appreciate you. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.